So yesterday I'm returning home from a shopping trip, and the car in front of me as I'm waiting at the light to turn onto Central and then from there to proceed to Terrace, which is part of the tourist bus route that takes you through a section of Albuquerque that somehow is commercialized in relationship to the series Breaking Bad, and we often hear the voluminous voice of the Breaking Bad bus drivers. As they make their way past the sites that have appeared in this particular series, and in the car, on the bumper sticker of the car in front of me as I'm waiting to turn left onto Terrace, is a sticker that says I support the Second Amendment, and some other bumper stickers that I can't particularly recall, but that all participate in a kind of inflammatory pro-gun rhetoric. And and as I'm waiting to turn left onto Central and then right onto Terrace, the route of the Breaking Bad bus tourist attraction, I noticed the gentleman in the vehicle leaning out the window of his car, which is filled with smoke because he's chain smoking cigarettes, and he's middle-aged and he's bearded and looks, if he hasn't spent some time, displaced and homeless, looks that he may be on the verge of becoming so. But it's hard to say such things. But he looks like many of the individuals who participated in the January 6th insurrection, and who have either been so sufficiently, brainwashed by alt-right media, Fox News, and the other, perpetrators of ideologically and racist-based, lies involving the outcome of the 2020 election, that they've lost, all touch with reality, or who are disingenuous about their beliefs of reality and really don't care who won the election, but will commit any act of violence so that a fascist, racist president whose ideology is in keeping with theirs, will have his hands on the reins of the executive office. And I was sitting there in my vehicle after having gone, grocery shopping, returning home with those groceries. Uh, Thinking about, all of the student lives and children's lives lost to gun violence in schools, and how my wife, Lori, is now teaching on the Laguna Reservation, several miles away from Albuquerque, and what a relief that is to me, because the likelihood of her being killed in her capacity as a teacher is much smaller in that environment than it is in the city of Albuquerque, where every single day there's an incident in the public schools involving a child bringing a gun into school, and where I personally have been shot at in a parking lot after living in the city for less than 6 months. And only maintaining, or attempting, right, polite conversation with the individuals that I meet, which, sometimes is impossible because of the level of aggression and verbal violence that accompanies, all of the rest of it. But I was, looking at these bumper stickers and watching this man who, seemed, as I said, on the edge of homelessness, and reminded me very much of the images of those individuals, armed with various types of weapons in the January 6th insurrection, inspired by our former fascist president. Not former fascist, former president, who happens to be a fascist. Not happens to be, that's why he's so popular with this particular element of our society. And yesterday, I was sitting behind this vehicle with the various bumper stickers, including the I support the Second Amendment. And today, a young African-American woman named Tykia Young, who was pregnant, at the time that she was shot by police officers responding to an incident at a shopping mall in which she was accused of allegedly shoplifting a few items, and was sitting in her car. Today, Tykia Young is in the news. And perhaps, because of the space, that she occupied in that vehicle, and the parallelism, with my sitting in this vehicle waiting for a left turn, green arrow. Both of us waiting, but in very different ways. both of us involved in some kind of a relationship with the need to acquire resources, whatever resources that she needed in that mall. I don't know, but I know that just like me, sitting behind this vehicle with the Second Amendment bumper sticker, that she wanted to get home safely as well. And maybe it was the proximity of that and the coincidence of this moment, thinking about the artistic expressive work that I've done around defunding the police and the need to do something about gun violence that inspired me to want to respond to this event of yet another African American life lost to police violence. And I thought I could respond to it with some kind of conceptual or found poetry, and I found a site online that's called Defund Poems, and it's on a site called Hello Poetry. But when I clicked on it, a lot of the poems are fairly baldly uninformed, diatribe, and seem to occupy as much space arguing against and using this kind of alt-right lingo to do so, arguing, pro police agendas, and sort of missing the entirety of why some of us are concerned with the violence, the growing concern that we have with the epidemic of gun violence in the United States, and how rather than combating that, the police are just more fuel in that fire, and that and some of them seem to be somewhat less than plainly and obviously pro Fox News or pro Trumpy rhetoric, but there's at least an equal number of sort of mindless, blather, and I didn't really find that I could use any of this material, even manipulating it, for Aaron, for reading, and so I thought that rather than doing that, I would just stick with the initial story and attempt to simplify it, and perhaps do an iteration poem, based on with permutations, because it'll be an improvisation. But the poem instead will just iterate what I've already narrated. Yesterday, as I'm sitting in my vehicle waiting to turn left onto Central and then make a right onto Terrace, a car in front of me with a bumper sticker, "I support the Second Amendment," smoke pouring out of the vehicle, and today, an image of Takia Young, murdered by the police on Thursday, another black life stolen from us. Yesterday, as I'm sitting in my vehicle following a shopping trip, a car in front of me with a bumper sticker supporting gun rights, including an appeal to the Second Amendment. And today, a woman who was sitting in a shopping mall and murdered by the police on Thursday is just another story in the news. Yesterday, sitting in my vehicle waiting to make a left turn, the car in front of me catches my eye. The bumper sticker reads, "I support the Second Amendment." Today, reading about the murder of Takia Young. Pregnant with a child who would have been born in November if she and he had survived being black, sitting in a vehicle in a parking lot. In Sunbury Plaza, at a Kroger, in Ohio. Yesterday, having survived a shopping trip as an older white man in the city of Albuquerque, New Mexico, waiting to make a left turn onto Central and then another right onto Terrace. And today, an image of a young black woman who didn't survive a shopping trip in Blendon Township, murdered by the police on Thursday, accused of shoplifting. A few items whose value her killer must have believed to be greater than the life of this woman and her unborn child. Yesterday, sitting as a white older man returning from a shopping trip in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and observing the bumper sticker of a vehicle in front of mine, at an intersection of a main artery onto Central, past the University of New Mexico, I observe a bumper sticker. I support the Second Amendment. And today, wondering if the young black woman, Takia Young, shot and killed by Blendon Township Police in Ohio, in the Sunbury Plaza, had any bumper stickers on her vehicle. Yesterday, sitting in my car, about to make a turn, observing a bumper sticker, watching smoke pour out of the window of the vehicle, thinking about how that slogan and the other slogans of the bumper stickers had no sense of my concern for my wife's safety as a teacher and the safety of her students. How the slogan belonged to the mentality of someone concerned only with their own privileges and not the safety of others. Thinking about the difference between caring and demanding, thinking about the difference between concern for a community and selfish rage. And today, thinking something similar about what must have been going through the mind of that second police officer when he pulled out his gun and murdered Takia Young, because to him, his right to do so was greater than her right to survive. Yesterday, sitting in my vehicle returning from a shopping trip, about to make a left turn onto Central in Albuquerque, New Mexico, thinking about rights, and today reading an article concerning the murder of Takia Young, who was sitting in her vehicle when her right to live, to survive, to thrive as a Black woman in Blendon Township was so casually taken away. Yesterday, sitting in my vehicle, thinking about the psychology and dynamics of claiming certain rights and a hierarchy of privileges among those rights versus the rights of others. Today, thinking about the same things, but in a very different context. Yesterday, returning home from a shopping trip, having survived, and today, looking at a woman who never returned home from a shopping trip, who didn't survive. Yesterday, having survived, today, thinking about those who don't and why. Yesterday, thinking about why a bumper sticker supporting so-called rights and a misreading of the history and function of the Second Amendment, which never had anything to do with the way that guns are used today, and never anticipated a nation engaged in acts of gun violence so rampant and out of control that they could reasonably be called an epidemic. Reasonably called an epidemic because gun violence is the #1 killer of children in America, more than car accidents and more than any kind of disease. Yesterday, thinking of all of that, and today, the same. Yesterday, thinking about the rage and frustration some of us had in the refusal of a government and a nation and a citizenship unable to get over themselves and their privileges and take responsibility for their children and their mothers and their sisters and their brothers. And today, the same. Yesterday, waiting, and today, the same, waiting. Yesterday, not knowing how to begin a conversation with someone sitting in a vehicle, pouring smoke out the window, looking angry and frustrated at the time necessary at that intersection, frustrated and angry at the world, and perhaps, because of such frustration, willing to bring it all down. And today, feeling really only compassion for a woman whose rights to live and survive and to be and to exist as a Black woman in Blendon Township seems so obviously more significant to me than the right to own a gun. So obviously more significant, important, and real than some imaginary privilege, some imaginary excuse to do nothing about the death and murder of the children of our nation, our brothers and sisters, our wives, our friends, our neighbors. Yesterday, sitting in a vehicle, about to make a left turn onto Central, thinking about who profits from the sales of guns. And today, the same, but in a different context. Yesterday, sitting in my vehicle, returning from a shopping trip, about to turn onto Central and then Terrace, the bus route taken by the tourist attraction for the series Breaking Bad, thinking about Ted Cruz, whose political campaign depends upon gun lobbyists and who takes more than twice the amount of money from gun lobbies than even the second closest congressman. Today, thinking about how the death of Takia Young is framed by the exchange of money, between lobbyists and senators and elected members of our government, thinking about how it is framed by the money made by individuals like Rupert Murdoch, media mogul and empire builder. Whose billions are supported by blood and death. And the blood and death, in particular, of young men and young women of color, and how the anti-Black Lives Matter rhetoric of these same media moguls support the violence that their racist, fascist, misogynist rhetoric an ideological diatribe spews out endlessly in the building of their empires, and how this money and how these empires are built on the flow of blood. Like that of Tekia Young and her unborn child.